His deepest Scientology convictions are connected to his 320-acre property. The moment wasn't arbitrary. This occurred at the exact moment when Tom reached the most hazardous level of the chapel. Tom Cruise's birth occurred on Syracuse, New York, July 3, 1962, and nothing at all from the start felt stable in his presence. Mary Lee, his mother, worked as a special education teacher and attempted to keep the family together. Instructor, however, Thomas Cruise Mather, his father, was unable to maintain employment and created a tempest within him. As a result of the family's constant relocation, Tom attended 15 different schools. 12 years from now, they packed again each time he settled in. He had to start over each time he made a buddy. He was subsequently said that his father was a coward and a bully. The man who grinned before striking you, the type that produced for a little moment, you feel secure until the entire room goes dark. Tom discovered early on that he needed to protect himself alone in order to survive the day. Additionally, he felt as like he was stepping through secret traps every step of the way at home. School didn't bring. Teachers ultimately determined that he had dyslexia when he was 7 years old. However, nothing altered. He was still affected by while his father changed jobs. He attended different schools. He was usually the new child who was unable to read quickly enough and blend in. Children saw his diminutive stature and crooked teeth. He was labeled lazy by his teachers. He was disoriented. Occasionally he remembered the words the teachers read aloud, then repeated them later so that no one would realize he couldn't read them. It was a secret he kept to himself. Every classroom seemed like an exam for which he was unprepared. In 1974, then, one day, his mom made a decision that she could no longer tolerate the violence. Tom and his 3 sisters were instructed by her to discreetly prepare their backpacks and conceal them. They left Ottawa when the time was right and went back to Louisville. She submitted an application for separation when Tom was 12 years old. She rejected their father's pleas to be taken back as he pursued them. Tom observed her at work, while he carried papers and gave her foot massages after long shifts. She worked multiple jobs simply to pay the rent. When he attempted toy in 1984, he made amends with his father, who consented to see him in the hospital on the proviso that Tom never inquired about the past. He passed away shortly after, still in his late 40s, and Tom had to deal with the wounds from the years of abuse. Learn to coexist. Tom immediately looked for meaning after the escape. He enrolled in St. Francis Seminary School at the age of 14. In Cincinnati, with the intention of becoming a priest. At his school he had heard Father Rick Schneider lecture in Louisville, and he was pulled to that world for some reason. He took the IQ test, barely made it through, and soon found himself leading a rigid life of daily mass and never-ending prayer. Shane, his companion, recalled how he took it seriously and how both lads believed the priests had a fascinating life. But gradually, Tom's heart began to pull in a different way. 1 year later he made the decision not to come back. He later said that he returned to ordinary high school since he enjoyed girls. Too much to give up all of that, attempting to determine what came next. Confusion persisted in schools even after the seminary. He completed his high school education, lacking the ability to read correctly. His term was functional illiteracy. Leanne, his sister, assisted him by doing his homework and helping him with difficult classes. In 1981, he landed his first movie roles in Taps, and in 1983, he continued to rely on listening to scripts and risky business of perusing them. He committed lines to memory via sound. Like songs, he studied them. For he concealed this battle from everyone for years, even while pretending everything and grinning on film sets. Was alright. However, he persisted in pressing. He departed Glenridge, New York in 1980 at the age of 18, Jersey, and brought hardly nothing with him to New York City. He came with optimism and the will to give himself 10 years to succeed as an actor. To make ends meet, he unloaded trucks and worked as a busboy. He kept going to auditions. He entered rooms full of performers with training, but all he had was daring and instinct. His debut movie a little part in the 1981 film Endless Love, but it paved the way that he received a significant supporting part in Taps the same year. $14 million was spent on the movie to create, and the box office brought in $35.8 million. And all of a sudden, casting directors were taken aback by the intense 19-year-old who took his role so seriously. Him. Nevertheless, the covert struggle with dyslexia persisted. He needed Leanne's assistance. He spoke with filmmakers about collect data so he wouldn't have to read. He committed sections to memory phonetically. His legs occasionally ached from the strain of attempting to learn. His head hurt so much at times that he had to stop, but he persisted. Additionally, when he shot Top Gun, he was still hardly able to read in 1986. He defeated over 200 actors, fourth part of Maverick, and experienced nausea while flying an actual F-1 for Tomcats. Similar to the rest of the ensemble, Top Gun erupted into 357 and cost $15 million people globally. It turned into a wave of culture. MTV continuously aired its music. Recruiters for the Navy reported a 500% increase in interest. And among all of that achievement, Tom at last figured out how Tohat had troubled him since he was a child. He learned about Scientology's study technology in the same year. Additionally, by using such strategies, he was able to read with assurance at last. He subsequently claimed to have discovered that he could learn whatever he did. Everything altered as a result. He continued to stretch himself as he matured. In 1986, he performed in The Color of Money. Paul Newman's opposite is Vincent Laurier. Newman was 60, Tom was 20. Newman possessed 7 Oscar nominations but never took home the prize. He received his 7th nomination for this movie, and he ultimately won. Observing Newman's work taught Tom about dedication and longevity, and he was nominated for a Golden Globe. The movie produced $52 million domestically and signaled Tom's move into more senior positions. Raymond came years later. He portrayed the conceited luxury character Charlie Bobbot, vehicle trader who learns about his autistic savant brother, Raymond Dustin Hoffman. The movie was produced during the Writers Guild strike in 1988, only a few hours before the strike began. The last scene was composed, and no authors were permitted later on the set. Nevertheless, the movie became the highest-grossing film of 1988, earning between $354 and $429 million globally on a $25 million budget. 4 Oscars were awarded to it, including Best Image. Tom's character, according to critics, was the core of the narrative, and his performance demonstrated how far he had originated from the bewildered youngster who previously found it difficult to read a single page. Then, on July 4, 1989, a role that required all of his resources. In order to portray Ron Kovic, he stayed in a wheelchair and went to hospitals for veterans. Oliver Stone even proposed administering a paralyzing medication to him. The insurance company refused to let him stay for 2 days in order to help him comprehend the character. Tom shed some pounds. He was carrying the emotional edge of his own history. On July 3, 1989, his 27th birthday, he received his actual Bronze Star Medal from Kovic. The movie's budget was $17.8 million and produced $162 million globally. Tom was nominated for his first Oscar for Best Performer. Tom Cruise entered NASCAR with a sense of excitement that propelled him ahead. He was a true racer in his training. For Days of Thunder and exerted himself until his bones began to twitch. He once more selected Tony Scott because he wanted the same spark that they had previously produced. With a $60 million budget, the film debuted on June 27, 1990, with a global reach of $157.9 million. However, it felt insignificant next to Top Gun had produced The Storm. On the first weekend, just 15.5 million people crossed. People at Paramount immediately felt the impact of the 237 screens. However, something on the set, something unexpected occurred. When Cruise first saw Nicole Kidman in 1990, he sensed something that he later referred to as pure lust. Their chemistry developed quickly. On Christmas Eve 1990, they were married, only a few months after filming concluded. His ties to Scientology were closer throughout that time, and started influencing every decision he made. Prior to all of this, on May 9, 1987, he wed Mimi Rogers. He was 24 years old, and she opened the way for him to enter the Church of Scientology when she was 31. The course was altered by that one step of his entire existence. Their 3-year marriage came to an end in 1990 when Shia reached the age of 33. Later, in odd ways, that number reappeared in subsequent relationships. Mike Rinder, a former official in Scientology, was disclosed that David Miscavige, a religious leader, lobbied for the divorce. Greg Williher was even sent by him to persuade Mimi must consent within a day for Tom to wed Nicole. Individuals near the Mimi sought a Scientology marriage, and the couple whispered that Tom was sleeping with anything that moved. She subsequently said that it made her feel even more afraid. They took another shot, the scene after a week, and went on. Then the world would never forget that moment. He made an appearance on May 23, 2005, on Oprah Winfrey's program. He shouted about Katie while bouncing on her couch. Rather than promoting War of the Worlds homes, one of the earliest viral moments of the new internet era, the video became viral in a matter of minutes. Shortly after, he attacked Brooke Shields for treating postpartum depression with antidepressants, and then he argued discussing psychiatry with Matt Lauer on the Today Show. He was thrust into a tempest of negative press by the series of incidents. He later claimed that it was a combination of multiple events occurring simultaneously, but he meant every emotion he displayed. Tom Cruise, long before humans understood it, the world began to tremble. In August of 2006, when Saar Redstone, the chairman of Viacom, publicly attacked him, everything blew out. In the Wall Street Journal, someone who hurts the company and sinks revenue should not be on the lot, he stated. Was a terrible blow. It followed the May 2005 Oprah couch encounter, and following Scientology was so strongly promoted by personnel that the three obtained over $100 million less than the last movie. The studio concluded their 14-year partnership and attributed the decline in finances to his actions. Concurrently, ClosetGate exploded when Scientology was ridiculed on South Park, which sparked boycott threats worldwide. Supporters even declared they would ignore MI3 until July 2006, when Comedy Central rebroadcast the show. However, the film managed to escape danger and made $398 million worldwide, not a total career demise, But Redstone's assault was the first time a major studio head publicly removed a superstar for religious activism rather than discreetly severing connections. Just before Katie Holmes came into his life, something even crazier had been going on behind the scenes during that storm. In late 2004, Church organized a covert girlfriend quest. It appeared to be an audition. Actress Nazan was born in Iran. Bernardi believed she was working on a training assignment. Instead, in October 2004, she participated in daily auditing sessions for weeks. That where she disclosed her past and personal tales. Cruz and she then met at New in November of 2004. The Rockefeller Center ice rink marked the end of their first date, being closed exclusively for them. Yet the enchantment quickly faded. As of January 2005, it was when she later discussed it, the church disciplined her. She was transported to a Florida Scientology facility and compelled to shovel ditches at night and clean toilets with toothbrushes. Cruz showed up 3 months after that split. In public with Holmes, and they got married in November 2006 when Holmes submitted. Cruz then acknowledged under oath that she filed for divorce in June 2012 in order to keep Suri safe from Scientology. Additionally, from June to Thanksgiving in 2012, he briefly spent 10 days with his daughter. War of the Worlds, however, moved like fire in the midst of that chaos. Spielberg's movie launched on June 29, 2005, with $81 million globally on its first day and withdrew $64.9 million over the weekend of Independence Day. It was the largest opening of Cruz's whole professional life at the time. The movie made $200 million at home in only 24 days. $132 million was the budget, despite the fact that tabloids targeted despite his distaste for Tomcat and Scientology. The film made $63.9 million worldwide. It became the fourth 2005's highest-grossing movie. The domestic box office receipts were $234.3 million, and the global one hit $372.6 million, demonstrating his fanbase abroad was still powerful. Paradoxically, they connected his character's battle with extraterrestrial invaders to the Xenu story of alien souls in Scientology. The movie remained his best-grossing title until 2011 when Ghost Protocol overtook it. The multiplier is 3.6161 legs. Demonstrated how effectively the word got out despite the worst media storm he had ever experienced. Cruz's next big his portrayal of Colonel Klaus von Sternberg in Valkyrie caused debate. Germany vigorously retaliated. Numerous officials stated a national hero should not be portrayed by Scientologists. The son of von Sternberg fondly disapproved of the casting. The German Ministry of Defense in June 2007 prevented filming at the Bendler Block Memorial in Berlin. They changed their minds a few days later, but they acted as though that despite the government's opposition to Scientology, the prohibition had been applied to all works. The Federal Film Fund of Germany covertly provided $6.5 million in subsidies for the film. In the course of filming, Cruz donned the Stenberg's employment of an eye patch affected his depth perception and balance. In August of 2007, actual World War II aircraft during production, swastika-painted aircraft passed over German towns. When it debuted in December 2008, the film earned $8.5 million on the first day. It eventually brought about $200 million globally. The reaction diminished and Cruz's perseverance paid off. Then, in June 2010, Night and Day arrived. It's brought him and Cameron Diaz back together 9 years after Vanilla Sky. It was his first moment of fame. Following the divorce in the home, he plunged himself into the stunts in the renowned Running of the Bulls spectacle, which became a global rumor. Visual Cruz objected to effects teams' plans to add digital bulls later and insisted on using real bulls in addition to Seville, Caddies and portions of Universal were all included in the pursuit. Smart cars are whizzing around studios. Nevertheless, it was his weakest day since Far and Away in 1992. This performed worse than Valkyrie's 2008 opening of $8.5 million. His individual numbers were being negatively impacted by drama. However, the film still brought in $262 million globally, which gave him a slight boost when he was in a slump. Although they disagreed with the plot, viewers enjoyed the action. Later on, it even served as inspiration for Bollywood remake Bang Bang. To comprehend why these disputes continued to plague him, you must consider where The Voyage of Scientology began. In 1986, he joined after being introduced by Mimi Rogers' Tuth Church. In 1993, 7 years later, he attained Ort 3, where members study up on Xenu. The church claims that Xenu slaughtered billions of souls, 75 using hydrogen bombs inside volcanoes millions of years ago. These spirits are known as Thetans, are said to cling to people and cause both physical and emotional health issues. Cruz at that point, he was on the verge of quitting, but he persisted and worked his way up until, according to reports, he reached OT 7th by 2005 when at that point, participants think they can master their inner world and get rid of thousands of these linked ghosts. Through thorough auditing, his marriage to Nicole Kidman strengthened the church's hold. Auditing meetings with Hemators were used by David Miscavige to gauge skin resistance and coerce confessions. A former senior member later, Mike Rinder, disclosed that Kidman's phone was wiretapped by the church because they were worried that she would force Cruz to leave Scientology. Additionally, they scheduled special auditing sessions whenever they felt he slipped. Going Clear, a 2015 documentary, showed how deeply the church attempted to turn Kidman's adopted children against her in order to keep Cruz and Kidman apart. It wasn't just about safeguarding Asta. The goal was to maintain control. The world witnessed something that the church had never intended to be made public. In January 2008, A2004 saw the online leak of a 9-minute video. It depicted Cruz being granted freedom, Medal of Valor. The music from Mission Impossible played as Cruz discussed breaking down barriers and supporting SPs. He asserted that the only experts on the mind were Scientologists. He gave auditors kudos and stated other on the tone scale. Actors without his spiritual instruction scored lower than 2.0. He was even claimed that Scientology had helped him overcome his dyslexia and that he was a competent Bori. Entering in 1986. Illiterate. The church attempted to remove the footage, but within hours, it went viral on Gawker and YouTube. Darker accusations soon followed. The former Inspector General Marty Rathbun described how synagogue employees who made around Cruz's properties were worked on for $50 a week. According to John Browso, Hebelt Sound Systems designed an opulent motorhome for staff and led teams that renovated his mansion in Beverly Hills in 2002. They even managed Little Sukkah's light bulbs and gutters. Browso understood that the labor was primarily superfluous, yet it was intended to demonstrate loyalty to the star whom Miscavige adores. Massive estates were enjoyed by Cruz, while these employees worked as if they were unpaid laborers. The tale of Nazin Boniati was added one more injury. She was informed in October 2004 that she had been selected for a She was told to color her hair, take off her braces, and end her relationship with her partner. After signing a stringent contract, she discovered that Cruz would be her partner on the project. She was in a relationship. For about 3 months until Miscavige was offended by a remark. Cruz expanded rapidly.